We're gonna start the butter tart filling. So the first thing is a half a cup of raisins. If you want raisins in your butter tarts, you can put them in. To do that, you're gonna soak your raisins in a small bowl. So I've measured half a cup. I'm gonna put those in and cover them with hot tap water and then let them stand for 30 minutes. And then while they're standing, I'm gonna prep the rest of my ingredients. The next ingredient is butter. We are going to use a 1/4 cup of soft butter. So again, we're going to use the measurements on the package. So we're going to cut at this dotted line to get a 1/4 cup. You can see that, 1/4 cup. And it calls for softened butter. So the pastry used cold right out of the fridge butter. This is softened. Softened means it's gotten to room temperature. It's sat out for a little bit. You don't want to heat it. You don't want to melt it because then it'll be too soft. So just let it sit for at room temperature while your raisins soak and you should be good. The next ingredient is brown sugar. Again, I have it in a canister. So what you're gonna do is scoop the brown sugar out with a spoon, put it into your measuring cup, and you actually press down on brown sugar. You pack it into your measuring cup. Until it's full. I'm going to put it in this dish until we're ready to use it, but when brown sugar comes out of the measuring cup, it should hold its shape like that. I've measured a pinch of salt into this dish using my fingers again in the salt, just like pinching them together. And the next ingredient is corn syrup. So we're going to use half a cup of corn syrup. And for this, we're going to use a dry measuring cup because it is one of those thicker liquids that we were talking about that you don't use a liquid measuring cup for. I'm going to fill it up. I'll measure our next ingredient. The next ingredient is 1 egg lightly beaten. So you're just going to take a fork and whisk your egg. And the last ingredient is half a teaspoon of vanilla. You don't want to measure it over your mixing bowl. So I'm going to measure over this bowl. You don't want to spill anything into the bowl with all the other ingredients. So I'm good, so I'm going to put that in here. And now I have all my ingredients measured. And this is called mise en place, when everything's measured out. We were talking about this yesterday in class. So everything's been measured. We're ready to go. We can start our recipe. We're just waiting for our raisins to finish soaking. And by the time they're done, our butter should be soft and we'll get started. I've left my raisins soaking for half an hour. So now I'm going to use a metal strainer, which we learned about yesterday. And I'm going to drain out the water from the raisins and we'll get started preparing this. I just wanted to point out that I have all my ingredients measured out and laid out in the order that I'm going to use them. That just helps keep me organized as I go through the recipe. So the first thing we're going to do now that we have the raisins soaked and drained is to add our soft butter into a mixing bowl with the brown sugar, the salt, and the corn syrup. This might take a while to drain out. You can hold it like this for a bit, or you can try to use a rubber spatula to get it out. You want to make sure that you get most of the corn syrup out because it's needed in the recipe. And now we're going to use a wooden spoon to mix this together until the butter and the sugar are creamed together. So a lot of times what you can do is use the back of the wooden spoon against the side of the bowl, and that'll help you make it smooth. So mix this together. Squish the butter up against the side, and I'll show you what my end result looks like. I would say I've been mixing it for almost 5 minutes, like quite a while, and now it looks creamed. You can tell it's a lot lighter, it's smoother, all the lumps of butter have been worked out. So now we're gonna add in the egg and the vanilla. And we're gonna mix that together well. Everything's mixed well together. It's a similar color, it's just a little runnier. And I've switched to this curved rubber spatula so that I can scrape the edges of the bowl. And now we're gonna roll out our dough. Okay, we're ready to roll out the dough. So I put a little bit of flour on the counter. I'm gonna spread it so it's just a thin layer. I'm gonna put my dough out, and then I'm gonna use a rolling pin to roll it out. This is the only rolling pin I have. It's got this pattern, and so it might leave a pattern. It'll leave a pattern on my dough. If you're at home and you don't have a rolling pin, you can use any kind of bottle. When you're rolling, you're gonna start from the middle and push away from yourself. You can either put it in the middle and pull back towards yourself, put it in the middle, push out, and just keep rotating. You want to roll the pastry out till it's about a 1/4 inch thick, and now we're going to cut our circles. We're going to use a muffin tin for our butter tarts today, so we're going to try and cut the circles just bigger than the circles of the muffin tin. So I'm going to try using this glass. It's just slightly bigger around to make my cuts. So I'm going to place the glass there and cut around with a knife. And then I'll have circles like this. When you're cutting your circles, you want to place them together as much as possible to avoid the extras, so we can use those up after. So now you're going to take this leftover dough, form it back into a ball, and roll it out again. Now that I have my circles, I'm just going to push them down gently into the muffin tin. If they crack a little bit, you can just use your finger to press down and merge that crack back together. So just very gently work your way through tucking these back into the muffin tin to form a shell. I push my butter tarts into the tin. So now that I have my shells formed, I feel like I could have gone a little bit bigger in the size of the circle, because then it would have come all the way up to the top, but these are going to be good. This is how you do. You start by putting the raisins in first, and then you go from there. I'm going to spoon the mixture into the muffin liners. I'm using this scoop I have at home. You could also use a 1/4 cup measuring cup. I'm definitely finding these tart shells a little small, just for the amount of filling they hold. So that'll be a tip I can give you before you start prepping yours. But you want to fill them just slightly under the edge. So this is my final product. I'm going to wipe off these little drips with just a paper towel and clean it up, because that's going to be the biggest pain to clean when it comes out of the oven. But these are going to go in the oven at 400 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. It's been 15 minutes. I took them out to check them and put them back in. They were bubbling up like crazy. And so just know that they're going to puff up, like they're going to get high out of the shell, and then they'll fall back down after. The way that I could tell that they still needed to be in longer is they're still really liquidy. These are my butter tarts. So you can tell they overflowed a little bit. So that means I had a little too much filling in my dough. They'll still taste delicious. This one turned out really nice. I think I had extra pastry, so I definitely recommend that we make them a little bit bigger. So we'll do that tomorrow. And I'm gonna let them cool. They're more congealed, I don't know if you can tell, and less liquid than they were before. They're like thicker on the inside. I actually put some nuts in some of mine, and you can do that if you're at home. Unfortunately, we can't do that at school because there's no nuts in the kitchen. And here's the finished product. Enjoy.